Welcome to HuskerExtra.com. Brian Christopherson, joined by Steve Sipple. How you doing?
Good, Brian. Good
We're
to be back.
We're on the brink here of Big Ten Media Days, and before that, they came out with this media poll. Now, it was a pretty small sampling of voters. It was only like 26 voters who voted on it, but it was a pretty close vote in the Legends division, which you'd probably expect. Michigan and Nebraska are basically in a dead heat. Michigan had 3 more points, so I guess they're the slight favorite to win it. Is that about how you draw it up? If you were to make a prediction here in July,
I'll make a prediction.
What would you say?
I'm very surprised that Michigan is atop that poll. Looking at what they have back, I really like Nebraska.
Really?
I mean, Michigan's really thin in the front 7 on defense. They just don't have much, and they lost a great linebacker. And then on offense, their skill positions are surprisingly ordinary. Surprisingly ordinary. I don't think that's a team. Nebraska's going to be suspect on defense, Brian, as we all know. But I don't think that's a team that's going to rattle anybody too much.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about Devin Gardner, but this is a guy who's only started 6 games so far, so you don't know. The thing is, when you look at the Legends division, you could make a case for 4 teams, really. Nebraska, Michigan, Michigan State, Northwestern. But every one of those teams, you could point out flaws. I mean,
no doubt.
You can Nebraska with their defense, Northwestern's defense is a big question mark.
Yep.
Michigan State's offense is a big question mark. So I do think it's a toss-up. I would favor Nebraska slightly. In part because I like their schedule.
Well, there's the difference.
I like how the schedule sets up. I think Michigan has a little tougher schedule. They play Ohio State, of course. Nebraska does not. So it's possible Nebraska could even lose Ann Arbor in Ann Arbor, and Michigan could still lose 2 games to open it up for Nebraska.
No doubt.
No doubt. Now, the other thing about this poll, Ohio State was kind of the runaway favorite. They were picked by 25 of the 26 media members to win the Big Ten title. But after this poll comes out, there's news that Carlos Hyde, who is probably going to be their starting running back, is dismissed from the team. That's a report, at least. And then Bradley Roby, who might even be a bigger loss if he were gone, a cornerback, potential All-American. He's in a little hot water. We don't know what's going to happen with him yet. But does that change your mind on Ohio State at all?
Well, I mean, the road just won't be quite as easy. But I still think Ohio State has enough to go 13-0. I really do. I mean, their schedule is very favorable. It's very favorable. Non-conference, I think the toughest game will be California. Their conference schedule is very manageable. I see them going 13-0, and then I don't know. I mean, who knows about the bowl game? Even without Hyde, if that's the case, and Roby, if that's the case. Both are big losses, though. Hyde's a big, booming back, 6 foot, 227. And I don't know. I mean, they probably go with Jordan Hall, who's a small back, 5'8", 5'10", 185. And I don't know who else they got beside Jordan Hall.
Hall's a more dynamic back, but he's injury-prone because he's small. And that's the thing with Hyde. He's a big back, and he could take some wear and tear off Braxton Miller, who they have to keep healthy. That's where it's a loss. Real quick, we'll get to Nebraska here from Media Days. Is there one or 2 things you're looking at in particular as we circle around Bo Pelini and Taylor Martinez and all these guys?
Yeah, well, you know what much of the narrative will be about the Nebraska's defense, and it is indeed suspect up front. I mean, front 7 for Nebraska is surprisingly inexperienced, surprisingly unproven, and it'll make for a wild ride, I think. I think Nebraska's going to have to win a lot of high-scoring games. I bet there'll be a lot of close games, but I think the offense is good enough for Nebraska to get through to Michigan with an 8-0 record.
I find that it's not usually big headlines that come out of this, but more like nuts and bolts stuff. So I think it'll be little things, kind of like the permanent captains and kind of what led Bo to make changes and some little things like that. It's that kind of little stuff, I think, that will probably come out more than a giant headline. But we'll be there to chronicle it. It starts Wednesday in Chicago, runs through Thursday. Stay tuned to HuskerExtra.com for all the latest.